Hello,
Hello.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our Community Research Academy program today. Welcome. What I'm going to do is just tell you a bit about the Community Research Academy. The Community Research Academy is being sponsored by Weill Cornell Medicine Clinical and Translational Science Center. The director of our program is Dr. Julianne Imperato McGinley. And my name is Reverend Dr. Lula Mae Phillips, and I am a Community Engagement and Research Manager here at the CTSC, which is the short acronym for Clinical Translational Science Center. So I'd like to welcome all of you to our program. I want you to know our mission, our passion is to introduce the community to research, because research is so important in our lives. There's nothing that does not include research. Is making lipstick, research, food, ingredients. What do you put into food? It's research. What adds, what kinds of foods complement what kinds of foods? That's all research. So now, amidst the COVID and all that's going on with the COVID, we are talking a lot about research. And our passion is to get community members involved in research. And that's what this program is all about. So if you're interested in getting involved in research, learning more about research, you're in the right place. And I want to welcome you today. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about myself as sort of an icebreaker. So I'm going to ask the rest of you guys who's on the line just to tell me a little bit about yourselves. Take 1 minute or less, not too long. I am a registered nurse, and I've been a registered nurse for many years. I've worked in all areas, all departments, open heart, organ transplants. I've done it all, ICUs. But now my passion is community education. I'm also a minister. I have a children's ministry. So with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let our two speakers, Mr. Jeff Zhu, who is the Managing Director of the Community Engagement and Research Corps here at the CTSC, tell you a little bit about himself. Jeff.
Thank you, Lula. Yes, as you mentioned, I serve as the Director of the Community Engagement and Research component at the Clinical and Translational Science Center here. And I will be teaching or talking a little bit later today about what we do. My background is actually microbiology, but I sort of took a detour and got an MBA and ended up running clinical trials as well as community engagement research. So here I am today. Pankaj?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jeff. Now we're going to have Pankaj tell us a little bit about himself. Pankaj
Hello, everyone.
Patel, Mr. Pankaj.
My name is Pankaj Patel. I am the Clinical Research Manager at the Weill Cornell Medicine CTSC. Me and my team, we're responsible for helping a lot of the physicians and investigators at the university in conducting their clinical trials. Yep, that's me.
Okay, now I see Miss Jewel Jones. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Jones?
Yes, I actually work at the Hostos Community College in the office of the president. My background is in diversity and inclusion, EEO in particular. And I live in East Harlem, and I'm very much interested in this program, just in terms of the medical field and how that works in terms of research and even like clinical trials, even like with the vaccine, of COVID vaccine, so things like that. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you find the answers to some. I'm not going to say all. I'll say some. Oh, okay. Reverend Dr. Bruce Rivera, I see you're back. Welcome. You have to unmute.
Trying to. Yes. Good afternoon to all. Happy New Year. It's certainly a pleasure to join this group once again. I'm a repeat customer. It was so great. You had to get it twice. So I am senior pastor at Christ Church, United Church of Christ in the Bronx. I also serve as the president of the Bronx Multi-Faith Advisory Group to the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. I am a retired psychologist out of the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and I'm glad to be here.
And we're glad that you're here. Thank you. Is there anyone else on the line?
Yes.
I'm here too. I'm Paulette Spencer.
Oh, all right. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paulette Spencer. I'm a community engagement policy analyst for the Bronx Community Health Network. We work closely with Montefiore Medical Center. And while we had the grant, I was a community lead for the Advancing Precision Medicine All of Us research program at BCHN. So much of my work included and still includes facilitating or creating spaces for dialogue between community residents, physicians, and CBOs to discuss clinical trial participation and community trust in medical institutions.
Wow, welcome, welcome, and I'm so delighted that you're on. I haven't seen you for ages, so
I know.
thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay,
Yes, my name.
do we have anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's a
Go
whole
ahead.
list actually.
Okay.
Okay, so we will just go down the list.
Okay.
Okay,
Karen Peterson.
hello, Karen. Well, if you're shy, you don't have to say anything.
Okay. How about Kenny Escobar?
Yes, hello.
Okay,
My name is Kenny
Hi.
Escobar. I'm currently a project coordinator at the New York Archdiocese of New York Drug Abuse Prevention Program. And what I want to learn from here, I already have knowledge on translational research. I just want to learn more about the skills of how to integrate this whatever becomes known from this translational research and bring it to the community and the stakeholders that I work with and make it more feasible for them to understand this information.
well, I hope you can find what you need here, and maybe down the road, you don't know, maybe you can help enrich here. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Hi, my name is Jorisha Wilson. Well,
Hello.
my background is more in finance, but I wanted to know more about clinical research in general.
Okay.
This COVID. Yeah, I just wanted to know more, just learn.
Okay, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. Thank you. Money is always needed in research as well. So thank you so much for attending the course. I hope you find out exactly something that will enrich your life. I'm sure that you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a comment
Hi.
from Karen. She said, "Hi, I'm Karen Peterson, having mic issues. I'm a Harlem resident and chairperson of the National Action Network Housing Committee. Here to get information. Thank you." Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. My name is Cortez Moore. I'm a retired IT manager from New York Public Library. I've been retired for like 10 years now. My interest with the group here is involved because I'm involved with two veteran groups. One is the Veterans for Peace, and the other one is with the National Association for Black Veterans. Within both groups, I find that there are a lot of veterans that are really afraid of research medication. Okay, so I want to be able to make more veterans more acceptable to the research that's going on now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Very, very good. So you're looking at it in terms of like a workforce development, helping them understand possible positions and research in general?
Yes, but I want to be able also from this, learning from the Community Research Transitional Academy, I want to be able to bring back information to the veterans so they will be more comfortable in accepting the vaccine with COVID.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. One of the things that the Community Research Academy, the Community Research Corps does is we have additional classes and where we give out additional information about various conditions. So whenever we have a talk that's going on, even though it will not necessarily come under the umbrella of Community Research Academy, we will send you out that information and you could join and listen to the talk.
Thank you.
And those talks might be very beneficial. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Okay.
I have another comment from Elba. She said, "Good afternoon to all. I currently working in a nursing home, hospice, and palliative care. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm looking to get knowledge on
Palliative.
community research."
Oh, okay. Okay. Very welcome. Welcome. All right.
Hello, everybody. This is Jennifer Tiffany, and I'm the Executive Director of Cornell University's Cooperative Extension Programs in New York City. And I work real closely with Lula May and with the rest of the team at the CTSC on community engagement and research and translational research. I'm also working with a number of Cornell initiatives around vaccine education and vaccine access. With the city extension system, the Ithaca campus, and also the statewide cooperative extension system. So it's great to see everybody here.
Great to see you, Jen. Thank you.
Hi, greetings, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hi.
Oh, hi. My name is Angelina Taran, and I work for the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, which is the economic arm to the Bronx Borough President's office here in the Bronx. And I'm currently the compliance officer, and I love everything science, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to learn something new while I am working from home. So thank you very much for allowing me to grow my knowledge in science.
Grow it and share it. Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dejan Parker. I am a researcher at Bronx Community College, and I also hold a master's in public health from Mount Sinai School of Medicine. And I'm here to add on to my public health degree.
Oh, okay. Well, hope you get the information you so desire. Welcome and thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else?
Yes, my name is Donna White. I'm here to acquire knowledge and hopefully pass it on. My background is in quality assurance and improvement. And that's about it, just to get more knowledge.
Okay, welcome, welcome. I hope your heart's desire is met. I do believe it shall.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, this
Anyone
is
else
Diane.
want?
Hi,
Okay.
this is Diane Mack.
Hi.
I'm with Metropolitan AME Church and also Creative Social Solutions. And I am a doctoral student doing research. And as a social worker, I'm just always interested. I've been interested in how we take research to the community and work with the community to inform research. And so in the many areas of interest that I have, I felt this would be, this is one of them in the area of health.
Thank you so much, Diane. And you were my partner when we took the mental health classes.
Yes.
In Long Island City.
Right.
Welcome and thank you.
Yes, mental health first aid.
Yes, yes, mental health first aid. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Hello. I
Hi,
see we also have, okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Usta. I am a freshman at Hunter College, and I'm a pre-med. but I also had an interest in research and clinical trials, which is why I'm here.
Okay, welcome. Great. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Anyone else? I see we have Francine Scanlon, and Francine, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, I am Mia. I am currently an undergrad student at NYU, and I'm pursuing a chemical and biomolecular engineering degree. In the future, I do hope that I could pursue a PhD MD, and I'm very interested in research within cardiology and nanomedicine.
Very, very, very nice. I don't know who do cardiology, but I think you get general. So thank you so much for being here. Okay.
I have a comment from Dominique saying, hello, everyone. She's an outreach manager at Share Cancer Support.
Okay. If no one else has anything to say, I thank each and every one of you for joining us at the Community Research Academy this afternoon, and we will start our presentation. Mr. Jeff Su. Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Lula. Agnes, could you just stop sharing your screen so I can share mine? Thanks. Okay, perfect. So first off, thanks again to everybody for joining us today. And I'm going to give a quick overview today of what the clinical and translational, or what translational research is, first of all. Then I'm going to give a brief explanation of what the Clinical and Translational Science Award is, as well as an introduction to the Weill Cornell's Clinical and Translational Science Center, as well as the activities of our community engagement and research component. So I do want to start out by explaining a lot of these acronyms. I think one of the things that we as scientists tend to do is spew out a lot of acronyms and not actually define them. So if at any point I say an acronym that does not make sense to anybody, please don't hesitate to interrupt and let me know, hey, Jeff, define that for us, just so we're all on the same page. Yeah, so let's get started. So to begin with, where some of the other later speakers will go into more depth, but I did want to give a quick overview of what the translational research process is. And so there are a couple steps to the translational research process. T0 or phase 0, what you think of as basic science. So think about scientists working in a lab with petri dishes and test tubes. And for all of these phases, I'm going to use the COVID vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine as an example. So T0 will be the scientists working in the lab to develop the vaccine. And then T1 will be translation to research. And so translation to research is the phase where you're trying to determine if something you've developed in a lab is actually safe to use in humans. And that is what we consider phase 1 clinical trials. You may have heard that term a lot lately in the media. And that's all it means. Phase 1 is that they're testing something they developed in a lab to see if it's safe in humans. Then phase 2, it's translation to patients. So that's what you're probably hearing in the media for the COVID vaccine is phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials is how they refer to them. And these trials are there to determine what dose of the vaccine is needed to be effective in humans, and then to determine if the vaccine is effective at all in preventing COVID-19 infection. So that is where a lot of the vaccines currently are stuck, but we actually have a couple of vaccines that have moved on, notably Pfizer and Moderna, that have moved on to the third type of translational research, which is translation to practice. And so when you think about translational practice, that's where these vaccines are right now, where they're trying to get these vaccines out there into people, trying to convince people to take the vaccine and trying to get medical institutions and other Department of Health to actually give the vaccine out to people. So in the case of COVID-19 vaccine, it's a little easier than some of the other advancements we develop in medicine, but still there's a lot of misinformation and the hesitation about is the vaccine safe. So there's still a very important process of educating individuals and making sure that nobody is left out of the vaccination process, especially the underserved communities. And then finally, there's the translation to community. And what we mean by that is we're looking at population level effects. And that's a fancy term. All that means is that we want to look at in the long term, once we've gotten the vaccine out to a lot of people, did the vaccine actually prevent infections and allow us to get life back to normal in the US? And so it's at least for the COVID-19, this is a little easier to answer than a lot of other sort of research. But it's in general, it's a very important thing to look at. And the day, did your treatment, in this case, the vaccine, actually work and impact society? And so translational research is one of the three main types of research. The other two are, I've sort of mentioned in the process. Basic research is the research that occurs primarily in labs. And then clinical trials or clinical research is the testing of new drugs and treatments on humans. And so the translational research process that I just sort of overviewed is really just how do you bridge the basic research with the actual clinical research and human outcomes. And that for a long time, that was sort of one of the failings of modern science in the sense that we made a lot of discoveries in the lab. We had a really, really hard time of turning those discoveries we made in the lab into actually new treatments, new drugs that we can give to patients and to improve their lives. And so to assist with that process, the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, so the NIH is the largest scientific funding agency in the United States. They're a government-run agency, and their goal is to promote scientific research. So the National Institutes of Health created the Clinical and Translational Science Awards program. And they've got I'll read it out loud, they've got a purpose statement on the website, and it says the CTSA program is designed to develop innovative solutions that will improve the efficiency, quality, and impact of the process for turning observations in the laboratory, clinic, and community interventions that improve the health of individuals and the public. So that's a big statement, a big paragraph to digest right there. But the way I like to think about it is that our goal as CTSA, so institutes who have received this award, is to help researchers make their ideas happen. So if a researcher comes up with a great new idea for a new drug or a new treatment, it's our job to provide them with the resources and the guidance to actually make that treatment into a new product that can be used for humans. And there's a lot of steps in that process, and you'll learn a little more about that over the rest of this course. And so finally, there are 62 of these CTSAs across the nation, these centers across the nation. We have a map here of all of them. So just to give you an idea that—
Es Angie de Nueva York, ¿cómo estás?
Yes, hi. Hi, Angie, did you have a question? Oh, okay, I guess not. But please, again, feel free to interrupt me and let me know if you have a question. And so these, again, are the CTSAs across the nation. And you see there's many, many of them. And all of us actually do work together to collaborate. And you'll be learning a little bit more about that later on today. Finally, I did want to talk about the Weill Cornell's Clinical and Translational Science Center and give a quick overview. So I know this is a big chart, but I'm going to sort of break it down to little components to make it a little easier to understand. So in the middle, we have the administrative core and the operations committee. So this is, for lack of a better word, the leadership and decision-making body of the CTSC, the Clinical and Translational Science Center. And it comprises our primary investigator, or principal investigator, Dr. Imperato McGinley, as well as the directors of all the individual components. So what are components? Components, you can think of them as departments or divisions of the CTSC, which each accomplish certain tasks and goals to make everything work, make the entire entity work. Advising this core leadership group is the External Advisory Board. So this comprises of directors of other CTSCs, government officials from the NIH, as well as representatives from other institutions, as well as the community. And so they'll evaluate the work of the CTSC on a regular basis and provide feedback to the leadership. But we also have a community advisory board, and that is something that we run under the community engagement component. And this is a diverse group I'll talk a little bit more about later. But I did want to mention that unlike a lot of other community advisory boards across the nation, we actually give our community advisory board a lot of decision-making power here. And I'll go over the specifics of that, but I did want to mention that, at least in my personal opinion, there's no point in having community input if the community's members providing this input don't actually get to influence or make decisions. So that's why one of the main things that we wanted to do was to ensure that, it's not just getting feedback or listening to community members, but actually letting them make decisions and that actually affect the kind of work we do. And finally, there is an internal leadership council. And all this means is that our CTSC is actually not just Weill Cornell, but we actually have a bunch of other institutions as partners. So the full list is at the bottom, but I'll go over quickly. It's Hospital for Special Surgery, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, Cornell University Cooperative Extension, Cornell University, Hunter College, the Center for Translational Basic Research at Hunter College, as well as the Hunter College School of Nursing, the CUNY School of Public Health and Health Policy, as well as the Animal Medical Center. And so I know that's a big laundry list, but essentially what it means is that all of these partners have made some of their resources available to the CTSC. And then in turn, all of the researchers at these institutions have access to the CTSC's resources. And the Internal Leadership Council comprises of representatives from all these organizations. And lastly, we have evaluation and tracking. And this is just a team we have here at the CTSC that evaluates and looks at metrics of the work that everybody does and uses that to provide guidance and help us improve. And then I want to quickly go over the individual components of the CTSC and what they do. So the components are these blue boxes on the bottom, the first of which is informatics. So informatics provides a lot of the technical support. So there's a couple of research databases and IT support necessary to make research possible. The second group is community and collaboration. That's this component, which I'll be talking about later. Next is translational endeavors. And this is just a fancy way of saying workforce development. So training our workforce in giving them the necessary skills to do their jobs, as well as pilot awards. So if you're not sure what a pilot award is, it's just a grant we give out for investigators to test out a new idea, a new concept, and demonstrate that it works, is viable, and is worth pursuing.
Jeff, there's a hand raise from Jill Jones.
Yes, please.
So I didn't mention, but I was on the community advisory board at Metropolitan Hospital as part of Health and Hospitals. So I had a question about your community advisory board in terms of where you get members from and from the local community and how that works.
Yeah, definitely. So our community advisory board comprises of mostly representatives from community partners we work with. So most of our partners are faith-based organizations or community centers throughout New York City. So most of the membership are representatives from these faith-based institutions. We also have some individuals from our partner institutions, as well as other not-for-profits in the health field. Right? Yeah, perfect. And then next, we have research methods. It's the next component of the CTSC. And this comprises our biostatistics team and research design support team. So these are, when you do a research study, there's a bunch of mathematical calculations you have to make to determine how many people do I actually have to recruit for a study, and how do I design the study to make sure that any findings any results I find are legitimate and not a waste of everybody's time. So that's what the biostatistics core helps with. And then we also have a regulatory knowledge and support team in the research methods. And they are comprised of the IRB, which stands for Institutional Review Board. And so you'll learn a little bit more later in this course, but as a brief summary, the purpose of an IRB is they're convened at every institution that does research, and their goal is to protect the research subjects. So they're there to make sure that any research done by the institution is done in an ethical manner and that does not take advantage of anybody. Next is a hub research capacity, and this comprises of our research navigation team, as well as our inpatient and outpatient units for patients, and our core laboratories. And I think Pankaj will be talking a little bit more about this later. And then next is our network capacity. So this is comprises of the collaborations between our CTSC and the other CTSAs, the other ones that received the same award, the 62 that you saw on the map earlier. So this comprises of how all of these 62 institutions work together to make clinical trials better and more efficient. And then we also have a couple optional modules. So in our case, it comprises of veterinary medicine and a precision medicine component. Really quickly, precision medicine is the idea of, instead of diagnosing a treatment or diagnosing an illness and using a drug to treat it, what you do is you actually tailor treatments to a specific individual. And this is most prominent in cancer care. A lot of cancers are actually specific to the individual. So some treatments, even though, let's say breast cancer, for example, even though two people can have a breast cancer treatment, how they arrived at that breast cancer can be vastly different, meaning that the treatment that works for them can be vastly different. So this is one of the sort of emerging fields of medicine where we're starting to realize more and more that you can't just treat a disease. You have to treat a patient and what makes them unique. So that's a very, very quick overview, and I'm not doing quite enough justice, but hopefully that gives at least an idea of what the goal there is. And then finally, veterinary medicine. One of the big issues with clinical trials is that they're expensive and they're time consuming. And one of the ways to speed this up is to actually use animal models. So a lot of large mammals, if you look at cows, pigs, horses, dogs, and cats, they're very similar to humans. So one of the ways that we've been trying to speed up the process of developing new treatments is if these are drugs and medications that are being used already in animals, maybe we can take that data and speed up the process of developing new treatments. And then finally, we have an institutional career development core. And these are responsible for a bunch of grants we give early career researchers to help them do their initial research and protect their time so they can actually spend time not seeing patients, but actually doing some clinical research. And that's closely connected with the training core, which provides classes and as well as a master's and just certificate program for individuals interested in doing clinical and translational research. So I'll pause right there to see if there are any questions about what the CTSC. Okay, perfect. So I'll spend the rest of my time talking a little bit about the community engagement and research component. And we've got three major goals. The first of which is to build trust with the communities in New York City. So how do we do this? We do it, one, by disseminating knowledge, health knowledge, to communities in New York City. And we do this by partnering with communities to prevent or identify a disease at an early stage. Then we also educate communities on medical best practices. Our third major goal is to increase engagement of New York City's communities in all phases of research. And to do this, we involve communities in the research process as research partners and decision makers. And we also provide a platform for participation of underrepresented and underserved communities in clinical trials and research. And finally, we guide and support investigators with infrastructure and resources to involve more communities in their research. As a quick summary of our accomplishments, we really started our community activities back in December 2009. So these are stats between then and September of last year. And during that time period, we had 834 community events, reaching 12,600 community members across 165 community sites. A total of almost 6,000 community members were provided with free health screenings and medical consultations across our heart-to-heart program. And I'll talk a little bit more about all these programs in a bit. We also had another about 4,000 community members attend 291 health educational talks. And we also started an opioid overdose prevention program in March of 2018. We've held 213 of those events, distributing 5,500 free naloxone kits. And naloxone is the antidote for an opioid overdose, as well as training 2,800 community members. We also started helping researchers recruit from the community in 2014. And since then, we supported 8 studies recruiting 566 research participants. And then I'll go over the individual stats later, so I won't go over the breakdown here. But I just want to make it clear that we aim our programs at the traditionally underserved and minority communities of New York City. And we have been very successful in that regard. About 70% of our participants are female, and about 55% African American or Black, 18% white, 12% Latino. And this is a map of New York City, as well as all of our programs and where they take place. So you'll see we do have a lot of activities in East Harlem and the South Bronx, as well as sort of central Brooklyn and the Jamaica area of Queens. And so the first program I wanted to talk about is the Heart to Heart Community Outreach Campaign. And this program is a free health screening program for minority and low-income communities. And we're also there to train future health professionals. So these programs are staffed by voluntary medical, nursing, physician's assistant, and registered dietitian students from Cornell, Hunter College, and New York Presbyterian Hospital. And they're supervised by faculty members. And really, it's one of our goals is to get these diverse group of health professionals to work together early in their careers so they learn how to be part of a good interdisciplinary team in the future. And finally, we want to gather some data on health disparities and barriers to healthcare access in these communities. In terms of the services we provide, we look at height, weight, a body mass index, that's what BMI stands for, as well as blood pressure. We also do blood screening tests for diabetes and heart disease. And at some events, we have a full ophthalmology or eye exam that we offer. Everybody who goes through the program gets a medical consultation, as well as nutrition and diet consultation if they need it. And finally, anybody who needs additional care, we'll refer them to follow-up care at the Weill Cornell Community Clinic, which is our free student-run clinic at Cornell, or a low-cost or free clinic in their community. And finally, if anybody is uninsured, we will put them in contact with a not-for-profit called NADAP, and they'll help get individuals insured. In terms of statistics, the map of New York City with where the events we've held over the years are. We've held 130 events over the last decade. And one of the questions we want to answer is, are we actually reaching the right communities with these programs? And so one of the things we ask is income. And looking at that data, about 20% of our participants live below the federal poverty line. So the federal poverty line for a family of 4 is about $21,000 a year. So that's about 20% of our participants. However, as we all know, New York City is a fairly expensive place to live in. So just because the federal poverty line is so low does not mean that individuals are not struggling in New York City. So we also look at another metric, which is called living wage. And so for New York City, a living wage for a family of 4 is defined as about $65,000 a year. Personally, I don't think that is enough for a family of 4 in New York City, but that's how it was calculated out to be. And 58% of our participants do not live in a household that makes a living wage. So looking at that, I do think we have been reaching the right communities. Another question I get asked a lot is how many of these individuals are uninsured? It's about 27% over the course of the last decade. One thing that a lot of people that ask me is, did the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare as a lot of people refer to, did that make a difference? And the answer to that is yes, in the sense that it started out probably in the about 30%, and it dipped a couple percentage points after the Affordable Care Act was passed. But one of the interesting things is that it never dipped below about 21, 22%. And the main reason we think for that is about 20% of our participants are undocumented. And obviously those individuals are not covered under the Affordable Care Act. So we think that that sort of sets the sort of base for the lowest it can go. And then finally, the majority of the participants for this program have been minorities. 55% African American or Black, 7% non-Black Latino, and then the rest the other races. And then we look at how is the health of the individuals that we've screened. So we look at something called hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of somebody's diabetes risk. Normal hemoglobin A1C should be less than 5.7%, but we found that that's only the case in about 48% of our participants. Over half of them, 52%, have an A1C that's either pre-diabetic or diabetic levels. And since we started looking into this in September 2013, we found 701 new cases of prediabetes and diabetes. For blood pressure, it's similar. We've found 473 new cases of high blood pressure, in this case, hypertensive systolic blood pressure, between 2013 and 2020. And we actually looked at the much more conservative cutoff of 140. For a lot of physicians these days, they've lowered that cutoff to 130 in high blood pressure. And then it's also similar for total cholesterol. About 1/3 of our participants have a high total cholesterol, and we identified 827 new cases of high total cholesterol. And so taking all of this into account, one of the things I like to tell people is that when we first started doing this, I had a medical student come up to me and say, hey, Jeff, you know this question we ask people to say, to rate your own health. What do you think your health is? So I had this gentleman come up to me and say that his health is excellent. But when I looked at him, he's pre-diabetic, he's got mild high blood pressure, and he's overweight. So I don't know if this individual is just not well educated or just unaware of his health conditions, but he's just like, this just seems, really, really weird enough. And so I didn't think much of it at the time, but after we looked at the data, this individual actually had, had better health than the average individuals in his particular community, which I think for me was the biggest, eye opener. People ask me, what is the biggest thing I've learned? And I think that's it. It's just how bad the average health in a lot of these communities we work with is, and how great the disparities are. And that's really what's opened my eyes to the significant unmet need that exists here. And then the next program I want to mention briefly is our community interactive video conferencing program. And this is our health education arm. And the goal of this is we use video conferencing like we're doing here today to do education on a variety of health topics, ranging from yoga classes to hands-only CPR, to diabetes, nutrition education, as well as opioid overdose prevention. We actually started this, I know video conferencing is become very much the norm, especially over the last year. But when we started this program in 2009, it was actually right after the iPhone came out. So it was a new and fun concept when we started it back then. In terms of the Civic Program, these are the sites we've been working with since 2009. Again, participants are, majority of them are minorities. In this case, 54% African-American or Black, 70% non-Black Latino, 20% white, and a good mix of the rest. One of the things we ask is immediately after the event, we'll ask individuals, hey, after attending today's talk, do you plan on making a change to lifestyle behaviors? 88% said yes, they would. Now, obviously, if somebody's saying they will make a lifestyle change and do they actually do it are completely different things. So we call these individuals up again after 3 months and say, hey, did you actually make the lifestyle change? And did you keep that lifestyle change? And 48% of them said yes, they actually made the lifestyle change and kept it for those 3 months. So definitely, I think these days, there's no question that video conferencing is an effective means of education and communication. But back then, it was still a new thing, and a lot of people weren't sure. And so the answer is yes, it is effective, as we all know now. And then finally, I want to talk about the CTSC's opioid overdose prevention program. So one of the benefits of working with a lot of faith-based leadership throughout New York City is we get to understand feedback from them, to understand.
Call from K. Pella.
I'm sorry, is there a question? Okay, I guess not. So one of the benefits of working with the clergy of New York City is that we really get a direct source of information about what are the major health issues that exist at the community level. And one of the things that one of our clergy members told us is that they had a huge problem with drug overdoses in his community at his church. In fact, he told us that just the very last weekend, he had somebody die on the steps of his church from a drug overdose. And as a medical community, when we asked around what people were doing, the majority of the other individuals at Cornell were saying, oh, we're doing research into making safer painkillers or new treatments for treating addiction. And the issue there is that that process is not short. It takes a long time, anywhere from 8 to 14 years. And the problem is that people are dying right now today. So what can we actually do to save lives today, not 8 to 12 years down the road? And so to accomplish that, we work with the New York City and New York State Department of Health to go out into these churches and provide education on what is an opioid, how do you identify an opioid overdose, and then how do you administer naloxone, which is the antidote. And then finally, we give out free kits, naloxone kits, so that these individuals, if they see a friend, family member overdosing, they can save their lives. And this event consisted of a lecture about the opioid crisis, testimonials from individuals recovering from opioid use disorder, and then we'd inform people about treatment options and refer them to our clinics where they can get service for free, regardless of insurance or income level. And we started this in 2018. We've had 213 events since then, all across New York City. We've trained 67 volunteers to go out and help train the community members. And we've trained 2,800 community members. Again, most of these are minorities. In this case, 60% are non-Black Latinos, 21% African-American and Black. And most of this work has been concentrated in East Harlem and South Bronx, which are the two most heavily impacted communities in New York City. One of the things that obviously you want to know is that were these kits that we distributed used to save lives. And over the course of the program, we collected 48 forms from people saying that, yes, I used this, I used the drug and I potentially saved a life. One of the difficulties though, is that there's a lot of stigma associated with drug use. So we don't know if this is an accurate number. We suspect not, because most people who end up using these kits based on demand are not reporting it. And so that's one thing that we're looking into. We're working with one of the manufacturers to actually anonymously put a device into these kits we give out just to let us know when it's open. And hopefully we're hoping that'll give us a better idea of what percentage of the kits we distribute end up actually being used. And in total, we've given out more than this now. This was September 2020. It's probably closer to about 6,200 kits that we've given out now. And then finally, in terms of research support, we supported 10 research studies now since January 2014, recruited 608 research subjects. And I won't go into every study, but it's a wide range of studies that we've supported over the years. Everything from testing of new point of care devices to early childhood development. And then the last subject I want to talk about is our community research pipeline. So as I mentioned earlier, one of our major goals was to involve the community in all aspects of the research process. And one of the things we want to do is to foster development of new community-engaged research with an emphasis of community-led projects. So projects led by community members such as yourselves. And how do we accomplish this? Well, one of the things we do is we educate investigators about the community, and then we educate community members about research, and that would be this course. And then what we do is we offer two types of grants specifically for community. The first is a planning grant. And so these are grants we give a community organization a small amount of money in order to identify and develop a project with a researcher. And so one of the, I guess, barriers that we encountered is that it's not easy to develop a relationship with a researcher and to develop a research project together. That takes time, and a lot of the organizations we work with don't have the money to support somebody to just spend their time doing this. So that's why we offer these planning grants. And hopefully the goal of getting a planning grant is to develop a research project and then to apply for a community pilot award. So these are 10,000 grants for 1 to 2 years to test a research idea and demonstrate that it actually works or is feasible for further research. And I'd also like to talk about the Community Advisory Board and exactly their role at the CTSC. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a diverse group consisting mostly of community leaders from the organizations we work with. And it's a very diverse group in terms of race, gender, and the communities and boroughs that are represented. When I think about it, I'd say it's about something like 80% female, 90% minorities. So it's an extremely diverse group. And then what's represented: faith-based organizations, local government, daycares, community advocates, and other not-for-profit healthcare organizations. And in 2017, we started out by having the Community Advisory Board review all of our planning grant and community pilot award applications. That was a huge success. So after refining the process in 2019, we expanded the review to include all pilot applications received by the CTSC. And one of the key things we did there is that these applications are scored in the same format as the scientific reviews, and they're weighed equally as the scientific reviews. And so I think that was one of the most important things we wanted to ensure happened, is that the community voice and the scientific voice are treated equally. And with that, that's an overview of the CTSC, what we do, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Hi, great presentation or introduction. Thank you.
Okay.
Alrighty then.
If there's any questions, then you could just feel free to email me and I can ask Jeff also and get back to everybody. Okay, so Pankaj, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi everyone again. Just one second. Thank you, Jeff, for the great overview again of our CTSC. I'm going to be talking more about the clinical trials and what clinical trials are. I oversee the clinical trials unit at the CTSC, which consists of our research assistants who are assisting investigators in the conduct of the clinical trials. So what are clinical trials? First of all, new tests and treatments that aren't offered to the public as soon as they're made. They need to be studied. A clinical trial is a type of research that studies a test or treatment given to people. We are all familiar in the past year of the COVID vaccine clinical trials that have been ongoing, and Jeff alluded to that earlier in his presentation. So clinical trials study how safe and helpful these tests and treatments are. When found to be safe and helpful, they may become tomorrow's standard of care. Clinical trials can study many things, such as new drugs that are not approved by the FDA, new uses of currently approved drugs by the FDA, new ways to give drugs, such as going from an infusion to a pill form. So these are some of the types of clinical trials that are ongoing and that will be coming along in the future as well. A clinical trial is a carefully designed study which tests the benefit and risks of a specific medical treatment or intervention, such as a new drug, like I previously mentioned. Once researchers and investigators have completed a rigorous screening and preclinical testing process, the company then would file for an IND application, which would allow the FDA or which would allow the institutions to conduct these clinical trials in human volunteers. Every clinical trial is led by a principal investigator. So these are the most common things that you'll see in a clinical trial. The staff members, it's led by a principal investigator who is usually the doctor or the physician, team of nurses and research coordinators. The FDA requires multiple phases of clinical trials to be completed before deciding the medicine under investigation is safe and effective for the broader patient population. So as you may know, it does take a long time for a drug to be approved by the FDA. Even when the COVID vaccine clinical trials were going on, we all were like, when are these vaccines going to be approved? When are these vaccines going to be approved? But that was the fastest ever a vaccine has been produced. Usually it takes years and years. Even for the flu shots that we normally take, they usually take a few years before they're approved. Usually the number of human volunteers in a trial increases as treatment moves through these phases, which I will talk to you about in a little bit. So, like I said, clinical trials are carefully designed, reviewed, and then completed. The principal investigator is the person that is in charge of the trial. They are the scientist that's the expert in the field that they're conducting the clinical trial of. They take the lead in designing the clinical trial. They will provide input on designing the clinical trial. They will choose the research team, and they will then carry out the study. And Jeff also mentioned in his presentation about the IRB. Clinical trials need to be approved from the IRB, which stands for the Institutional Review Board. An IRB is a group of people chosen by the healthcare center. For example, at Cornell, the IRB is a group of people chosen by the institution where patients will be enrolled into the clinical trial. Each IRB board includes of at least 5 members. These members must include an expert, meaning a scientist who knows the science of the drug, someone who is not a scientist, a layperson, someone who is not associated with the institution. So these are the various types of people that are involved or that are part of the IRB. They review the research plan to make sure the rights and welfare of patients are protected. After the trial has started, they will review the progress of the trial every year, as long as as long as the trial is approved at the institution. And to do this, what the IRB asks for usually is to have a data and safety monitoring board to review the progress of these clinical trials after it has started. So every year they will ask for, okay, how many patients have been enrolled so far? What have you done preliminary data, and what does it look like? Because they don't want to risk the trial to go on if there are no benefits to the patients. So members of these DSMBs are experts in clinical trials. They assess if patients are safe, if the data is complete, and if the test or the treatment is working or not. So that is the DSMB. Clinical trials also have risks. These treatments in clinical trials, there may be side effects, as we all saw for the COVID-19 vaccines, what the side effects involved patients with severe allergic reactions. So the IRB, like I said, they reviewed the appropriateness of a clinical trial protocol as well as the risks and benefits to the study participants. It ensures that the clinical trial participants are exposed to minimal risk in relation to any benefits that might result from research. There are 2 types of IRBs. There's a local IRB. We are part of, at Cornell, we have a local IRB that oversees the studies that are going on at the institution. And there's also a central IRB as well. They are IRBs where someone may be part of a center where there is not a IRB at the institution. So they utilize a central IRB for their studies. Like I said, members, at least 5 members, members of varying backgrounds. One member has to be an expert in science. One has to be a non-scientific member, and one member has to be a non-affiliate of the institution. And the trial, the IRB reviews every single material that a trial will use. So for example, if a trial will use a flyer that explains what the clinical trial is for recruiting patients, the IRB has to review that flyer as well before it's approved for use. The IRB reviews the consent form. The consent form goes over the study in detail, and the patient has to consent to the study. The IRB will review the protocol. The IRB will review any recruiting materials that are used. Even if it's an ad in a newspaper, the IRB will have to approve that ad. And for all of this, once a study has been approved, the investigator, the physician in charge, the doctor that's in charge of the study, they are the ones responsible for ensuring compliance. So anything that goes on in the study, they will be responsible for. If the study is found to be non-compliant during an audit, IRB will conduct a random audit as well. And then if a study has been found to be non-compliant, they will review that with the investigator, and they will take appropriate actions as well. Like I said, clinical trials, there are a few phases of clinical trials. So clinical trials they can be categorized into interventional clinical trials. There are diagnostic and screening clinical trials, therapeutic trials, non-therapeutic trials. And then there are phases of clinical trials. A clinical trial does not even start before preclinical research has been done. So after the preclinical research, tests and treatment go through and have been successful, that's when clinical trials will start. So the first phase of clinical trial aims to find the best dose of a new drug or treatment that with the fewest side effects. So they will usually, in a phase 1 study, they will usually test it in a small group of subjects, about 15 to 30 subjects in that phase. They will start, the physicians, the investigators will start by giving very low doses of the drug to a few patients. And as they go on and see that there are no side effects, they will maybe increase the dose as well until the side effects become too severe. This drug may help those subjects, and it'll also test the safety of the drug to see if it can it can proceed to the second phase. So phase 2 trial further assesses the safety as well as if a drug is effective. The drug is often tested in a larger population, usually a couple of hundred patients. And after that is successful, they will go on to a phase 3 clinical trial. Phase 3 will have a lot more subjects, into the even thousands. As we saw for the COVID vaccine studies, that Cornell was a center of the Moderna COVID vaccine. And the aim for that study was to enroll 35,000 patients throughout the whole study. And at Cornell, we were responsible for enrolling approximately 700 subjects into that study. So that was a phase 3 study when we were recruiting patients for that study. So joining a clinical trial. So once someone decides to join a clinical trial, these volunteers, they will come across many terms that they may not be aware of. First of all, a patient or a participant who is in a clinical trial will often be called a subject. So the subject are the people who volunteer to partake in these studies. You will hear terms such as randomized. What is randomized? So subjects, when a study is treating patients with a certain drug, they may be randomized into a certain treatment group. So they will be randomly be put into either the active drug, or sometimes if it's a placebo-controlled study, they will be placed into the placebo group. But that may be blinded. So what does that mean? So if it's double-blinded, meaning the investigator will not know which group the patient has been put into, the subject has been put into, nor will the subject know which group they are put into. So if it's a double-blinded placebo-controlled study, neither the researcher nor the subject will know which group they are a part of. They will continue on with the study treatments. Both groups will be a person that's on the drug and the person that's on the placebo will go through the same treatments, same procedures, and same diagnostics. So once the time does come to review the data, they will see that both groups went through the same treatment, went through the same procedures. There are single center studies, meaning a study is carried out at one location. Multi-center studies. The vaccine trials were multi-center studies, meaning they were conducted at multi institutions in the country. So joining a clinical trial is important treatment option for a lot of people, especially in oncology. A lot of cancer treatment does not have or effective, so sometimes patients may be referred to clinical trials as their best option. So these are some of the questions that, if you are to participate in a clinical trial, if you wanted to participate in a clinical trials, some of the questions that one may ask are, what is the purpose of the study that I'm participating in? What kind of tests and treatments will the study involve? What does the treatment do? Will the treatment have severe side effects that you are aware of? Will I know what treatment I'm receiving? Will I be in a placebo group, or will I be in the treatment group? If it's double blinded, obviously you will not know. What is likely to happen with me? Is there reimbursement provided for my time in the study? Do I have other choices besides participating in this clinical trial? How will this affect my daily life? Will I have to make visits to the hospital every week, every day? So these are some of the questions that you may ask for participating in the clinical trials. So that's basically a summary of what clinical trials are. Hopefully you guys have understood the basics of clinical trials. This is a subject that we can go into a lot of detail as well, but these are the basic foundations of what a clinical trial is and how clinical trials are conducted at institutions like Weill Cornell, and how we conduct clinical trials at the CTSC. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Jill Jones, you can go ahead.
Yeah, no, you may not be able to answer this, but I was wondering, anybody that's actually participated for the COVID vaccine, like in a clinical trial, and let's say they're part of the placebo, and so they would, or let's say, well, they would know. So let's say that that they happen to get the placebo, and let's say that they want to eventually be vaccinated. First of all, how does that work? Because I don't know if I got the placebo, the drug, and let's say I decide later on I want to get the drug, and maybe I was part of the group that got the drug.
That's a great question. So what these sponsors, both Pfizer and Moderna, did was they reached out to whoever received placebo during the clinical trials, and they were the first ones that were offered the actual vaccine.
Cool. Any more questions for Pankaj? Okay, I had one question for Jeff from Diane. She said, how has the epiphany about actual status of health and perception of health status compared community status of health influenced the work, research, or what next?
Yeah, so that is an excellent question. Whoever sent that, thank you for asking. That epiphany, as you put it, actually occurred way back in 2010. So it was actually one of the earliest events that we did. And everything that we have done since then has been guided and directed by that epiphany to one degree or another, I think. We really, until that happened, we really had no idea just how significant the health disparities in New York City were. So that is why since then we have dedicated all of our efforts to working with the underserved communities in New York City. And that's why when we develop our community network, rather than focusing on other large institutions as our community partners, we focus on working with faith-based institutions, other organizations with boots on the ground, so to speak, in the neediest communities in New York City. So we could get that direct knowledge and direct information from them. And that paid off wonderfully, for example, of the opioid crisis, and let us sort of react to that very quickly. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, this is Duration. I think I have a question for Patel. For the clinical trials, I've noticed, I've seen like where they're trying to find, I guess, participants, subjects. I think you used different terminology before, where they would say, okay, if you participate, we'll pay for your transportation, or we'll give you $100 at the end of the study. How do they determine what the subject or the participant would get for the clinical trial?
Great question. So for that, let's say a study is going on in New York City. A study is going on in a town where there's not a lot of population, or for example, like in Kansas. So those both cities have different cost of livings and different costs for everything, basically transportation and everything. So a participant in New York, if the study sponsor were to provide transportation from their home to the for let's say, for example, from their home to a Cornell Hospital, New York Presbyterian Hospital, it would cost close to $50. Same for that same patient, for a different patient in Kansas. If that same trip from their home to the hospital may cost $25 or maybe even less than that. So the study sponsor will usually come up with these budgets based on where the study is taking place. New York City is more expensive, probably the most expensive in the country. So the budget for studies being conducted in New York City will be higher than for studies being conducted in a different city. So based on that, that's the reimbursement, meaning the transportation cost will vary for all these patients, but the reimbursement for the time that the patient is spending being on the study, that will remain the same. But for flights, for transportations such as taxis, Ubers, bus, whatever that may be, those costs may be different per the center that's partaking in the study.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay.
See a question in the chat. There has, as far as I'm aware of, there has not been any studies that have been published yet that have shown the impact of incentivizing participation in the vaccines.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to thank you very much. I'd like to thank you, Jeff. I'd like to thank you, Patel, for such wonderful presentations, so insightful and full of information. Now, I want all the participants, I want you to take time to go over your syllabus. And I just want to stress that you read your syllabus, go over it, and get prepared for questions, as well as look at the videos that come before the classes. They help tremendously. And I want you all to turn to the back, turn to page 13 of your syllabus, because there are several programs that we're asking you to complete. The programs are free, and one of them is the Association of Clinical Research Professionals, ACRP course. And it is a course that is full of information about research. It's Introduction to Clinical Trials and Ethics and Human Subject Protection. So we're asking you to take a look at it and go through it. It's not difficult, it's just a little bit long. And there is another free class we'd like you to take advantage of, and it's the community-based participatory research course. And the links have been enclosed in your syllabus, so you can take a look at that. Or your syllabus has been emailed to you, so you can go back and take a look at the page, and you could press that as well. But I want you to take your time and go through the syllabus. It's a little long, but it's fairly complete. If we have anything that we want to add to it, we will send it out and let you know. If there's any changes, we'll let you know that as well in advance. But I want you to come prepared with questions, because we have such great speakers and they're so full of information and they are so willing to share information with you. If you have additional questions, and perhaps that may come up at night when you're ready to go to sleep and a question pops up, email it to us and you will get an answer. So I thank you so very much. Someone asked a question about our community advisory board. When you finish this course, you will have the potential to become a member of our community advisory board here at Weill Cornell Medicine Clinical Translational Science Center. So if you're interested, please let us know. That would be very much appreciated. So if you don't have any more questions, I'd like to thank all of you for participating today. And I look forward to hearing your questions and your answers in the other classes, in the classes coming up. I just also want you to know that we are trying to work on getting you guys involved in doing your own research projects. So we're working on that. So hopefully we'll do a little better by your class than we did in the first class. So I thank you again. Thank you so very much. Have a great evening and just enjoy research and enjoy learning about research. And when even you see people walking across the street, when you look at sneakers, when you look at shoes, when you look at cosmetics, when you look at eye cream, eyeshadow, or research, just don't think about research in terms of COVID. Research is very, very broad. What kind of insulation you put in the home? Research. Research. So thank you so very much. Have a wonderful evening. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.